Once we've installed the Giants editor, we can launch it from Start, All Apps, Giants Software, Giants Editor. Let's take a closer look at the Giants Editor user interface now by loading a file, a simple scene with a cube. To do so, click on the folder icon, the file link beneath the video player. This will download the files required for this tutorial in a zip archive. Once the download has finished, let's copy the archive to our desktop and unzip it. You will find the file cube_scene01i3d in the newly created folder. The Giants editor has its own file format, the i3d format. This format consists of an XML format that we can find in the i3d file itself. Additionally, there's also the i3d shapes file. This file contains data for the three-dimensional shapes of the objects used in the i3d file. Let's bring the Giants editor to the front and navigate to the folder we've just created via File, Open in the top left and load the file cube_scene01i3d. The Giants editor is divided into various sections. Along to the top, as usual, is the menu bar. On the left is the scene graph. Here we can see all the objects in our scene, the cube, the level, etc. The large area here in the middle is called the viewport, and it shows the currently loaded scene, so we see what's currently in the active camera's field of vision. Then we have attributes on the right-hand side. If this panel is not visible, it can be activated via the corresponding menu item, Window Attributes. The menu contains significantly more panels, but we'll learn about those in later tutorials. If we select an object in the scene graph, for example the cube, we will now see its attributes here, including the transform attributes, that is, where this element is located in the world, how it is rotated and scaled, whether it is currently visible, and much more. At the bottom is the console bar, where we can see what is being loaded, whether any errors are occurring, and similar information. Of course, we can move around or change the camera position in viewport. First, let's turn off View Framed Rotate in the menu if it's activated. Now we can rotate the camera by pressing and holding the Alt key and left mouse button. We can zoom the camera in and out of the scene using the Alt key and right mouse button. We can move the camera up, down and sideways using the Alt key and middle mouse button. Now let's turn on View Framed Rotate in the menu to change the behavior of the camera so that it orbits around its focus point. So if we now press the Alt key and move the mouse at the same time, we will rotate around the point the camera is looking at. This is especially useful when we want to inspect an object more closely and view it from all possible angles. To change the focus or aiming point of the camera, we select the cube here in the scene graph. Hold the mouse over the viewport and press the F key, and the camera will focus on the selected object. Now we can zoom the camera in or out of the cube and rotate around it. We don't need to move the camera very far in the current scene, but when designing a map, it can be extremely helpful to increase the movement speed in order to be able to cover greater distances faster. We can set the movement speed using the plus and minus keys on the numpad. A selected object always displays a transformation gizmo in the viewport. This allows us to manipulate the object. We can move it by dragging the arrows with the left mouse button, and we can rotate it by turning the rings of the gizmo. As we can see in the Attributes panel, the values of the transformation attributes of the object have now changed. We can also control the selected object using these values. For example, we can reset the rotation to 0 here. And as we can see, the cube then lies parallel to the level. If we now enter 1 meter in the translation for the y-axis, the cube floats above the level. So the most important foundations have now been laid, and we can move on to creating our own map in the next chapter.